So this guy made the worst trade of all time. He gave away his entire coffee shop for a bag of seeds. And while his friends called him crazy, he actually thought it was a fair trade because earlier that day, a rich man from out of town paid him a visit. After parking his luxury car out front, he strutted inside, intent on speaking to the owner. The owner was impressed by the rich man's fancy watch and designer clothes, and so he asked what grew from the seeds. "I'll tell you," the rich man smiled, "but just know that by planting these seeds, you'll make a fortune, as I have done myself." "But if what you say is true, why wouldn't you just keep planting them?" the owner asked. "Aha," the rich man grinned. "Since it's already worked for me, I'm inspired to help others like you." Although his coffee shop paid the bills, the owner was worn out from the daily toil. If he just did what the rich man did and planted the seeds, he was promised a fortune with far less work. The rich man explained carefully that the seeds grew a special type of miracle berry, one that people from all walks of life paid top dollar for. A berry that made any food you ate afterwards taste delicious. And so the deal was done. But nothing could have prepared the former coffee shop owner for what came next. For when he arrived home, his wife was furious. "That coffee shop was our livelihood," she yelled. "Now toss those seeds away and take back what's ours." But after hours of convincing, repeating the same words as the rich man, she begrudgingly agreed to let him plant the seeds. The problem was they needed more land. And so the former owner drove for miles and miles, pleading with local farmers to use a small fraction of their land. Finally, one agreed, so long as they could share a portion of the proceeds. From there, the former owner needed tools. So he went to the hardware store and piled his truck high with the essentials. But then he needed to research how to grow the miracle fruit bush. So he spent days learning. And then he needed to tend to the sprouts. So each day he drove miles and miles to the farm, leaving only after sundown. Then, when the bushes finally came to fruition, he needed to pick the miracle berries. Then, he needed to package them. Then, buy large refrigerators to preserve them. That's when it dawned on him. This was a lot more work than his coffee shop ever was, but he remembered the rich man's nice car and fancy watch and designer clothes and also the great fortune he was promised, so he pressed on. Finally, with a refrigerator full of miracle berries, he was ready to sell. But despite his best efforts, he couldn't find a single buyer. Meanwhile, the bills continued coming due, and his wife's patience was wearing thin. Eventually, enough was enough. His wife took the wheel and drove both of them back to the coffee shop. There, they waited for the rich man to arrive. But the person who came instead took them by surprise. Out of a decades-old car, a much shabbier version of the rich man stumbled out. It was the same man, but far less put together. "I don't understand," the former owner gasped. "Where's your nice car, and your fancy watch, and your designer clothes?" To this, the rich man laughed. "You mean the car rental, and my friend's watch, and the clothes I returned? But you said the miracle berries made you a fortune," the former owner shouted angrily. "They did," the man smiled. "You see, now I'm the owner of a coffee shop, with steady income for me and my family. And perhaps you'd have the same if you didn't let your greed get the best of you." Without another word, the couple stormed out. But the wife was quite smart, and after a bit of research, she discovered the supposed rich man was a wanted con man all along. The police handled the rest. And so, back to the coffee shop the owner went, back to the toil, but also back to truly reaping what he sowed with an honest day's work. That, and a valuable lesson, which is that oftentimes, one in the hand is better than two in the bush. Even if it's a miracle berry bush,